Chapter 1097 was even more interesting than Chapter 1096, in my opinion, and I think Chapter 1098 will bring to conclusion Kuma's backstory, which has been just insane overall. Stay tuned for what I have to say, but spoilers ahead. If you have not read Chapter 1097, go and do that right now. Now that you have read the chapter, let's get into my theories. Firstly, I think that the Celestial Dragons, or more specifically, Saint Figarland Garling and the Holy Knights, are the ones who captured Ginny. At the end of Chapter 1097, we see Monkey D. Dragon, the leader of the Revolutionary Army, get a call on a transponder snail that Ginny had been captured. Now, the wording that's used here is interesting. Alright, until official translations come out, we're utilizing fan translations, which have used the word captured. Alright, but if the word becomes arrested, that could give us, it becomes much more clear that, the Navy has her in that instance. But because the word captured is used here now, I think that we need to assume that a non-Navy body has captured her. So it could be pirates, and what I think it is the Celestial Dragons and the Holy Knights. We know that Ginny is the one who leaked the information about the God Valley tournament to the pirates such as Rox and Roger. Without her doing that, they would not have known that the tournament was going on. But because she did that, they knew, and they went and they destroyed everything, and they disrupted the Celestial Dragons' 3-year event. And since that, they haven't done it anymore that we know of so far. It is possible that they have continued to do it. And honestly, I think it's pretty likely. But I think that they have decided to go after her, and they have tried to go after her all this time because she was the one that leaked the information. They have a grudge against her. The Celestial Dragons, we know, are people who hold grudges against their enemies for very long amounts of time. Look at Don Quixote do Flamingo. It is such a good example of a celestial dragon who became a pirate, who held a grudge against those who wronged him for so long. He held a grudge against his father, who was another celestial dragon. There are so many examples of this within the One Piece world. I think that that's really the most likely answer as to who captured her. From this, I think that we are going to see Kuma, Ivankov, and Dragon go into action. Wherever the Holy Knights are holding Ginny, they're going to go there, and they're going to tear some stuff up, and they're going to make a big commotion, and they're going to try and free her. But one thing that's really interesting is that we have not seen Ginny in the present day. I feel like if Oda wanted to introduce her as though she was still alive, he would have already done that prior to this flashback. But because we know that, from what we've seen so far, she's, alive, she was strong in the past, she's someone who wouldn't be taken out easily. I think it's pretty likely that the Holy Knights capture her and then execute her, as we've seen Saint Figarland Garling do to another celestial dragon. If he's willing to do that to a celestial dragon and then participate in the human killing tournament on God Valley, I would assume that he would have this impression that Ginny never really stopped being a slave. Alright, so it's him exacting his revenge that's in a sense inevitable in his mind. But we know that so many characters in the One Piece world do not have that mindset. They grow from their past experiences, and they see who people become. You're not held back by your past. But the Celestial Dragons are one of the biggest groups and one of the most powerful groups that does have that belief that your past is what defines you only, and your bloodline. Whereas many characters such as Luffy and Ace come from what could be considered bad bloodlines, but they've grown into such strong and powerful people. Ace, of course, died at Marineford. Oda can definitely make the ending of this flashback extremely tragic or extremely rewarding in a sense. I think that Ginny is a character that is extremely similar to Nami. When I made a short on Chapter 1097, I used a video of Nami when I was speaking about Ginny. And I think that they're very similar in the sense of Nami is a character who is always, she's kind of greedy. She has these kind of drawbacks in her character. But she is someone who has such strong belief in Luffy. And as we saw in Wano, she refused to say that he would not become king of the pirates. I think that Ginny is very similar to Nami in this way. She kind of, she's greedy. We see her in Chapter 1097 wishing they would get something out of Kuma helping the old people in Sorbet Kingdom, but Kuma insists upon doing it, and Ginny reluctantly gives in and, allows him to continue. She never stands in his way. This is something kind of similar to how Nami acts. So I think knowing this, potentially Ginny could sacrifice herself in a way, showing that she finally understands Kuma's philosophy and honestly embraces it by sacrificing herself for the Revolutionary Army. This could possibly be the motivator as to why Kuma, begins to lose himself, why he becomes the tyrant. At this point in time, I would assume that he probably doesn't have the title of tyrant. But after whatever happens with Ginny, I believe he is going to go on some sort of rampage. This is one of his closest friends who he has a very strong connection with, a fairly romantic relationship with, but it's extremely complicated. And there's so many things that Oda can do that would make her death so meaningful for so many different characters and the Revolutionary Army's mission as a whole. That would have implications on Dragon, Kuma, even Garland for Garland. There is so many impacts if, depending on who takes her out, if she gets taken out. I've seen theories that state that Ginny is Bonnie and Kuma just removed her memories. This seems like a little bit of a stretch, but it could be plausible. I mean, Oda has gone on these extremely big twists recently. It's really hard to kind of predict what's coming next. So I think it's kind of likely that that's what we're going to see. Something that no one's ready for, their connection. Because wherever Bonnie goes, whenever she disappears, whenever Ginny disappears, Bonnie will appear. And I think this also coincides with whenever Ginny disappears, Kuma starts to lose himself. And this is why we see him become the pacifista, the model, the cyborg. So, knowing all of that, that's kind of like, I would say, like the best case scenario in a sense for what could come out of the ending of the next couple chapters leading up to chapter 1100, which I believe is going to be such a big reveal. But the other side of what Oda could do with it is just make it completely tragic and make this loss just so devastating for Kuma that it's not even a sense, there's no growth that happens. She's just killed. All right, this would be so impactful on so many different characters. Kuma, it would make so much more sense as to why Kuma lost himself. He could see it as for being nothing. We see Kuma as a character who wants to sacrifice himself for others. So if he was unable to do this to save Ginny, it would be so tragic in our books. I think Oda has such an opportunity here in so many different directions as to where he can go. No one's really ready, and no one can actually predict, in my opinion, what's going to happen next. Finally, the man himself, Dragon, is going to do something crazy, I think, in the next chapter. We've seen so much from him already in chapter 1097, but I think that there's more that we can expect from him. I think that Dragon has so much strength. We know that he invented the Dragon Claw fighting style, and what this style does is allowed Sabo to destroy an entire Colosseum with one attack. That's insane. All right. The master, the creator of this fighting style is likely capable of doing so much more. Not even likely capable, is definitely capable of doing so much more with this fighting style. I believe that he used it to break away from the Marines. Now, hold it with me for a second. This is going to seem a little bit crazy. But we see Garp as a character who kind of imposes his will on others. He wants Luffy to become a Marine. And he doesn't let Luffy, just say, I want to be king of the pirates, and Garp just laughs it off. No, he says to him, no, you will become a Marine. And until Luffy can stand on business and prove that he is able to actually pursue his dreams and do what he wants, Garp doesn't give in. So I believe something very similar happened with Dragon. I believe Dragon actually kind of agreed with Garp. Dragon has always had a sense of, a sense of justice, all right, and a desire to fix the injustice in the world. And so he went into the Marines thinking that that was the solution. We hear that from Dragon in this chapter. But what we learn is that the Marines were not enough. He needed to break away and create the Freedom Fighters in order to create a military body that actually embodies the ideals that they should, which is justice. We see the Marines wear that symbol on the back of their jackets, but they don't seem to stand for it. We see them protecting the Celestials at God Valley, allowing the injustice and the murder of innocent people to continue just because they aren't members of the world government. I would go on to say that they would more than allow it, even if it was. I would bet that the Marines would not stop the Celestial Dragons from doing an island cleansing tournament on a world government party member. Dragon knows this as well, I'm guessing, and that's why he decided to break away. But Garp would not just let him go. He had to prove himself. He had to, and I would imagine, defeat Garp at some point in time in order to break away, especially if he was an adult in the Marines. I would find it very hard to believe that anything short of a Garp defeat would allow Dragon to leave the Marines, and knowing Garp, he would not go down without a really hard fight. We know he's the hero of the Marines. He teams up with Roger at God Valley, which we haven't seen really anything of, but we might see more of it in the future. There's so much here and so much strength within Dragon that people have been downplaying, but I think thinking about what I just said and defeating Garp, that would put Dragon in an entirely different category. That would put him above admirals in a lot of people's books. A lot of people see Garp as equal to admirals, if not stronger, and I could kind of agree with that, especially in his prime, which is more or less about right when Dragon would have fought him. But there's so much that can happen there, and Dragon is truly such a strong character that I think we're going to see get fleshed out so much more in the coming chapters, leading up to chapter 1100, which I believe will have some form of a mega reveal. Could involve Dragon, could not. I'm starting to lean recently that it actually will not involve Dragon, but I'm not really too sure. Let me know what you guys think of these theories down in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next One Piece video.